The gunshot shattered our peaceful morning like thunder. Marcus collapsed, blood spreading across the deck boards as a fake cop stood over my brother's body. "He's a senator," I screamed, but the shooter was already reaching for his radio. "Control, we have a witness problem." Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. "Marcus," I screamed, dropping my coffee mug. The ceramic shattered across the deck boards, mixing with the crimson that was spreading beneath my brother's still form. "Oh God, Marcus, stay with me. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not here. Not at our sanctuary." The Willowbrook Lake cabin had been in our family for 3 generations. Grandpa built it with his own hands back in 1952, and every summer of our childhood, Marcus and I had spent lazy days casting lines off the dock, building forts in the woods, and falling asleep to the gentle lapping of waves against the shore. It was our escape from the chaos of D.C., the only place where Marcus could just be my big brother instead of Senator Marcus Wellington, the rising star of American politics. But everything changed when the Lakeside Homeowners Association took over management of our little community last year. "Sir, step away from the suspect," the fake cop barked at me, his weapon still trained on Marcus's motionless body. His uniform looked official enough, navy blue with shiny badges and patches. But something felt wrong. The fit was too loose, the badge slightly off-center, and his hands were shaking. "Suspect? Are you insane? That's my brother." I knelt beside Marcus, pressing my hands against the wound in his shoulder. Thank God it wasn't his chest. "He needs an ambulance, not whatever sick game you're playing." The fake officer's radio crackled. "Status report, Jensen. Have you secured the property?" "Affirmative. Suspect is down. But we have a problem, there's a witness." My blood ran cold. Witness to what? What had Marcus supposedly done that warranted being shot on his own family's property? It had all started 3 months ago when we received the first violation notice. The HOA claimed our dock was 3 inches too long and violated the new aesthetic standards they'd implemented. Then came the citations for our non-conforming window shutters, our unauthorized fire pit, and my personal favorite, excessive wildlife feeding because we kept a bird feeder on the porch. Each violation came with hefty fines, and when we tried to attend the HOA meetings to dispute them, we were told the meetings were private and invitation only. It felt like harassment, but Marcus, ever the diplomat, had tried to handle it through proper channels. "They're just flexing their authority," he'd said during our last conversation about it. "New management always does this. We'll sort it out legally." But I knew there was more to it. The other longtime residents had started receiving similar notices, while the newer, wealthier homeowners seemed exempt from the strict enforcement. Mrs. Henderson, who'd owned her cottage for 40 years, was being forced to remove her grandmother's rose garden because it was too colorful. Meanwhile, the Preston family, who'd bought their mansion-sized cabin last year for $3 million, had installed a helicopter pad without so much as a warning. The fake cop was getting agitated. "Control, what are my instructions regarding the witness?" "Eliminate any complications," came the cold response through the radio. That's when I realized this wasn't about HOA violations at all. I thought about Marcus's recent work in the Senate. As chair of the Environmental Protection Committee, he'd been investigating illegal dumping around protected waterways. Just last week, he'd mentioned discovering connections between a construction company and several environmental cover-ups around lake communities. "Beaumont Construction," he'd muttered, reviewing files on his laptop while we sat on this very deck. "They're destroying wetlands and bribing local officials to look the other way. The paper trail leads to some pretty powerful people. Jensen, are you listening? Clean this up. Now." The fake cop raised his weapon toward me, and I saw my death in his nervous eyes. But then Marcus stirred, groaning softly. "Don't hurt my brother," he whispered, his voice barely audible but filled with that same protective instinct that had defined our relationship since childhood. The sound of his voice gave me courage. "You made a mistake," I told the fake cop, my voice steadier than I felt. "You shot a United States senator. Do you have any idea what's about to rain down on you?" "Senator?" The fake cop's face went pale. "Control, we have a problem. You didn't tell me the target was a senator." "Shut up and finish the job," the voice screamed through the radio. But Jensen was already backing away, the magnitude of his error sinking in. Shooting a random citizen was one thing. Senators had security details, federal investigations, media attention. This had just become a national incident. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, keeping my eyes on the retreating figure. "I need an ambulance and real police at 1247 Lakeshore Drive." A United States senator has been shot by someone impersonating an officer. The dispatcher's professional calm cracked slightly. Did you say a senator, sir? Senator Marcus Wellington. He's been shot and needs immediate medical attention. Within minutes, I could hear sirens approaching from multiple directions. The fake cop had vanished into the woods, but I'd gotten a good look at his face and more importantly, I'd heard enough of his radio communications to know this was a coordinated attack. Marcus was drifting in and out of consciousness as the paramedics worked on him. The files? He mumbled as they loaded him onto the stretcher. Sarah, get the files. Hidden, in the floorboard, under Grandpa's desk. As the ambulance pulled away, FBI agents were already cordoning off the property. Agent Rivera, a sharp-eyed woman who'd introduced herself as the lead investigator, found me sitting on the porch steps, still covered in my brother's blood. Mr. Wellington, I need you to walk me through everything that happened. I told her about the HOA harassment, the fake cop, the radio communications. She listened intently, taking notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. You mentioned your brother was investigating environmental crimes. Do you think this is connected? I know it is. I led her inside to Grandpa's old roll-top desk in the corner of the living room. The floorboard Marcus had mentioned creaked slightly when I stepped on it. Together, we pried it up to reveal a waterproof box containing dozens of files, photographs, and recorded conversations. Agent Rivera whistled softly as she flipped through the documents. Your brother has been building quite a case. Look at this. Beaumont Construction has been systematically targeting lake communities with environmental protections, using HOA takeovers to harass longtime residents into selling their properties cheaply. The scheme was diabolical in its simplicity. Beaumont would install their people on HOA boards, then create impossible regulations and crushing fines to force out families who'd owned lakefront property for generations. Once the land was acquired cheaply, they'd develop it into luxury resorts, all while illegally dumping construction waste that contaminated the very lakes that made the properties valuable. They've done this to dozens of communities across 3 states, Agent Rivera continued. Your brother was close to exposing the whole network, including the politicians they've been bribing to look the other way. So they tried to kill him. It looks that way. The fake police officer was likely meant to make this look like a justified shooting, probably claim your brother was armed or threatening. But they didn't count on you being here as a witness. Over the next few hours, more details emerged. The HOA president, Robert Kellerman, had been placed in his position by Beaumont Construction. The harassment campaign against our family wasn't just about driving us away, it was about keeping Marcus distracted and discredited while they expanded their operations to other lake communities. The fake cop, whose real name was David Jensen, was a former security guard who'd been hired through a shell company connected to Beaumont. He was arrested trying to cross the state line, still wearing the fake uniform. But the most shocking revelation came when Agent Rivera received a call from her colleagues. Mr. Wellington, you need to know, this goes higher than we initially thought. We've identified at least 2 state legislators and 1 federal agency head who've been taking bribes from Beaumont. Your brother wasn't just investigating environmental crimes, he was about to expose a corruption network that reaches into the highest levels of government. I felt sick. Marcus had always been idealistic, believing he could make a real difference in politics. Now he was fighting for his life because he tried to protect places like our family cabin from corporate greed. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very lake that had given our family so much peace and joy had nearly become the site of my brother's murder, all because some company saw dollar signs where we saw memories. I spent that night in the hospital, holding vigil beside Marcus's bed. The doctors said he'd been lucky, the bullet missed major arteries and organs. He'd need surgery and months of recovery, but he would survive. When he finally woke up the next morning, his first words were, "Did you get the files? The FBI has them. It's over, Marcus. They got the shooter and they're rolling up the whole network." He squeezed my hand weakly. Good. I couldn't let them destroy what Grandpa built. Not just our cabin but all of it. These lakes, these communities, they're irreplaceable. Over the following weeks, the story exploded in the media. Senator shot by fake cop in environmental corruption cover-up dominated headlines for days. The investigation expanded rapidly, ultimately leading to dozens of arrests and the complete collapse of Beaumont Construction's illegal operations. Robert Kellerman, the HOA president, turned state's evidence in exchange for a reduced sentence. He revealed that Beaumont had been targeting our family specifically because of Marcus's position on the Environmental Protection Committee. The plan had been to discredit him through constant HOA harassment, then eliminate him if he got too close to the truth. The fake shooting was meant to be the perfect cover, a routine HOA enforcement action gone wrong, that would remove Marcus permanently while making it look like an accident. But they'd underestimated two things: Marcus's integrity and my stubbornness. He never backed down from his investigation despite months of harassment, and I refused to let him die alone on that deck. 3 months later, Marcus was back on his feet and back in the Senate, pushing through the strongest environmental protection legislation in decades. The Lake Communities Protection Act specifically targeted the kind of schemes Beaumont had been running, creating federal oversight for HOA management changes and establishing harsh penalties for environmental crimes disguised as development projects. As for our cabin, the new HOA board, elected by the actual homeowners after Kellerman's arrest, voted to rescind all the bogus violations. Our dock is exactly the right length, our shutters are perfectly conforming, and our bird feeder is officially recognized as a wildlife habitat enhancement feature. Mrs. Henderson's roses are blooming beautifully this summer. Marcus and I were sitting on that same deck last weekend, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and crimson. He was still moving slowly, favoring his left arm, but his spirits were high. "You know what the best part is?" he said, casting his line into the water with his good arm. "What's that?" "Grandpa would be proud. We didn't just save our cabin, we saved hundreds of families from losing theirs." I looked around at the peaceful lake, the unchanged shoreline, the other families enjoying their own pieces of paradise. It had taken a shooting, months of investigation, and a federal corruption scandal, but we'd protected something precious. "Think you'll run for re-election?" I asked. Marcus smiled, the same mischievous grin he'd worn as a kid when he was about to announce some ambitious plan. "Oh, absolutely. I got a lot more work to do. Did you know there's a mining company trying to buy up mountain communities in Colorado using the exact same HOA takeover scheme?" I groaned. "Can we at least finish this vacation first before you start your next crusade?" "Deal," he laughed. "But after that, all bets are off." As the stars came out over Willowbrook Lake, I realized that sometimes the places we love most are worth fighting for, even when that fight costs more than we ever imagined. Our family cabin had nearly become a crime scene, but instead it had become the epicenter of justice. And every morning when I wake up here, listening to the gentle sounds of the lake and watching the mist rise from the water, I'm reminded that some battles are worth fighting, no matter how powerful the enemy or how high the stakes. The lake remembers everything: Grandpa's dreams, our childhood summers, the day Marcus almost died protecting it, and now, our victory in keeping it safe for future generations. Sometimes, standing up to bullies, whether they're HOA tyrants or corrupt corporations, is the only way to protect what matters most.